Welcome to Autism Labyrinth. That little character you see dropping into that hole is me. It is my belief it's also the experience, usually without words, of every other person who has a pervasive disorder, whether autism, savantism, Asperger's syndrome, or the many other flavors described in too much detail by clinicians who are most often helpless in doing very much about it, especially if it goes beyond the first few years of life. That little character on the screen running around was not me. I use that as a symbol. My circles were much larger circles, but they were circles nonetheless. They took many other forms. I knew that I was trapped in some kind of a big-time circle when I used to run around Central Park and the reservoir. I would go up to the reservoir and start running and feel trapped in some large cylinder-like place. It was not what is normally thought of as the circular behavior or the walking in circles or the screaming of extreme cases of autism. It was my version, my high-functioning version. The world of autism is an inner world of circles. It's the world of quantum physics, it's the world of myths, it's the world of minotaurs. Facing autism means, for me, looking inward. Facing autism was to stare straight into a giant black hole. We are all mysteries awaiting solutions. I hardly knew when I approached autism what it was that I was approaching. I had been in talk therapy from 1983 to the end of 1989, after which time I didn't even know the name of what I had. I knew the experience. It was only in 1987 that I read Jung's psychological types and could at least describe, or see how he described, how my functions worked. I did have an inner world, and I did have thinking, and I for sure did not have any feelings and sensations, and did not know why. And I surely didn't know the name of what I had. In 1987, I took ecstasy and received an unusual message during this very comfortable experience with a drug that I was using for the first time. The message was, "It's genetic." That sent me back into my family history. Going back into that world I call the Cosmic Ice Laboratory. I had no memory of the past in the late 80s. I didn't know that I was entering not merely my personal history, but a world that was underneath my personal family history, the world of the Autism Asperger Labyrinth, the world of myths, the world of genetics. The art and the animations I have show lots of circles, and they're all precise depictions which took an extraordinary amount of time to replicate. As simple as they seem, I couldn't see them. I couldn't see very much. The world of autism is extremely cold. I had a very complicated relationship to my secret world of autism. It was no different than my complicated relationship to most of the other aspects of my life. Shame, but larger than shame, cosmic shame, really global shame. And that was why it was so difficult to remember my childhood. I'm the oldest of 3 boys. I have a brother who's a year and a half younger. He has no memory of our childhood. Looking back to my past to come to terms with my Autism Labyrinth had several distinct stages. My mind had glued itself on everything that was in front of me, but despite that, I had the ability to intuit situations. Rarely could I do so in the present. I was usually very good either before or after. My dreams from the late 80s contained numerous circles. There was one dream in particular where a line was drawn between 2 versions of myself. There was me and there was myself, and it was a dark place, and the line was drawn, but it never got finished. It was a trap. It was a circle. It was a labyrinth. And I did act out my labyrinths in many, many practical ways. It would only be much later that I realized that my visual perception couldn't quite finish. Similar to the dream. Relationships. Business deals. I was in the world of finance, believe it or not, despite my limitations, and succeeded in the world of finance for a fair amount of time. My running had the same sense, and I ran a great deal, especially during the 90s. I was trying to run out of my circles. In the end, I did. Relationships had a circular pattern, and I was able to recognize them. I was able to recognize them because underneath every relationship, just as underneath my seeing and feeling, was this circle that never quite finished. There are lots of parallels. If you visit the website conniptions.com, there's a section called the Autism Library of Science and Spirit. And there are a lot of unusual topics addressed there. One of the topics is what you're looking at right now, which is the topic of crop circles. I believe that the inner world of autism is a crop circle of the mind. What are called the various degrees of autism are, to me, descriptions of how close and how far, how impaired one's feelings and sensations are to some inner world that has as its origin circles. It's Times Square in the fourth dimension. Everything goes on all at the same time. It's an overwhelming experience. It is the basis, I believe, for every unexplainable behavior that autistic and pervasive disordered people have. My experience of autism and watching it evolve through me is that it's a confusion of worlds. The inner world is outside and the outer world is inside. The inner world is the world of labyrinths. The outer world is day-to-day life. Autistic people cannot distinguish, I couldn't distinguish between inner and outer.